The sound of a kettle beginning to whistle hangs in the pre-dawn quiet. The smell of coffee fills the small kitchen, a comforting ritual John has performed for 50 years. He'd wake before the sun, lace up his work boots, and head to a job that asked for his strength and his time. For 50 years, he was a factory man, a builder, a provider. And every Friday, when he got that paper pay stub, he'd see it. FICA, Social Security. He remembered once holding his young daughter on his lap, pointing to that line item. "That right there," he told her, a proud smile on his face. "That's our promise. That means no matter what, we'll be taken care of when I'm old." As she looked up at him with trusting eyes, he thought to himself, a whispered prayer of patriotism. "I've done right by this country. It'll do right by me." It wasn't just a deduction. It was a sacred pact. A promise he trusted the United States government would keep. He worked hard, raised a family, and faithfully paid into that promise. The promise that Social Security would be there for him when his body had given all it could. He built his retirement, a modest but dignified picture of quiet days and fishing trips, entirely on that foundation. The old fishing rod his father gave him stood in the corner of the garage, a quiet symbol of the life he'd earned. The cork handle still smelled faintly of lake water and sunscreen. But what came next wasn't a glitch. It was the unraveling. The fishing rod in the corner of the garage began to gather a thin layer of dust. The coffee pot sat full and cold on the counter. Life paused in silent confusion. It wasn't a loud, dramatic event. There was no formal declaration of failure, no letter warning him that his world was about to be upended. It was just silence. The 15th of the month came and went. The direct deposit that paid the mortgage, that kept the lights on, that bought his heart medication, it just wasn't there. A man who had faithfully paid into the system for half a century awoke to find his only source of income had vanished overnight. As the bills piled up and the life he knew began to unravel, his story became a terrifying warning about a promise the government may not be able to keep. And it raises a question that should chill every single person counting on that same promise. What if it happens to you? John's first reaction wasn't panic. It was confusion, annoyance even. "Must be a holiday I forgot about," he muttered, pouring a second cup of coffee he wouldn't drink. He checked the calendar on the wall, a gift from the local hardware store. A Wednesday. No holiday. What John saw next made no sense. But John had no idea the worst part hadn't even happened yet. He pulled up his bank account on his old desktop computer, the screen flickering and glowing in the dim morning light. He squinted, refreshed the page, and then refreshed it again. The balance was dangerously low, a puddle where an ocean of security used to be. The Social Security deposit, a fixture in his life more reliable than the sunrise, was gone. His wife, hearing the agitation in his movements, came into the room, clutching her robe. "Everything all right, dear?" "Fine, fine," he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes, trying to shield her from the panic that was beginning to coil in his stomach. He stared out the kitchen window, watching her reflection as she slowly shuffled back toward the bedroom, clutching her robe. He was hiding his terror, a quiet betrayal of the honesty they'd shared for 50 years. The annoyance curdled into a knot of dread. He spent the next hour searching for a real phone number, not some automated menu, finally finding one on a dusty statement from a year ago. And so began his trip into the maze of bureaucracy. The automated voice was a cheerful, soulless loop. "Thank you for calling the Social Security Administration. Your call is very important to us." The tinny looping hold music started, a maddeningly cheerful tune that became the soundtrack to his mounting dread. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked, each second a hammer blow against his calm. An automated voice eventually gave him the wait time. "Your estimated wait time is 2 hours and 37 minutes. Could you survive 60 days with no income?" He put the phone on speaker, the sound filling their small, quiet living room. He paced. He looked at the bills on the corkboard in his kitchen. The mortgage, due in a week. The electric bill, stamped with a bright red, past due. He'd gone to the grocery store earlier that week. He put a small steak in the cart, then quietly put it back before checkout. They hadn't eaten steak in 3 weeks, and maybe that was going to be normal now. He remembered telling his daughter so confidently years ago, "Don't you worry about us. Social Security will take care of us." The shame of that memory, contrasted with his reality now, felt like a hot poker in his chest. "We didn't ask for much," he thought. "Just a little dignity after all those years." When a human voice finally came on the line, it was hurried and tired. John explained what was happening. The agent was sympathetic, but couldn't help. "I see your file is under an administrative review, sir." "A what?" "What does that even mean?" John asked, his heart pounding. "It could be a number of things," the agent said, her voice distant. "You should get a letter in the mail." "A letter? When?" "It could be 30 to 60 days. 60 days. The words just hung there. He pleaded, he argued, but it was like shouting into a void. He hung up, the silence in the room suddenly deafening. They said 60 days like it was nothing, he thought. Like 60 days didn't mean food or medicine or the house. That night, his wife found him sitting in the dark. He looked at her, the woman he'd promised to protect, and the financial betrayal felt small next to the emotional one. "I thought we were safe," she said softly, her voice trembling. The days that followed were a slow-motion catastrophe. The next day, as he walked to the mailbox, his neighbor called out from her porch, "Morning, John." He forced a smile and waved back. He didn't want anyone to know, especially not her. A letter did arrive a week later. John's heart leaped as he saw the official-looking envelope. He tore it open. It was a fundraising appeal from a local politician. The frustration was so immense he almost laughed. The next envelope? That one would take something he couldn't get back. Then came the phone calls. The worst was from the mortgage company, using words like delinquency and foreclosure. A memory flashed in his mind. Him and his wife, young and beaming, standing on the empty lot where this house would be built. "We'll raise our babies here," she had said, squeezing his hand. "We'll grow old here." He looked over at his wife, who was holding the bill, her hand shaking slightly. She sat at the kitchen table, tracing the floral pattern on the wood with her finger. He remembered her at this same table years ago, folding their daughter's tiny baby clothes, laughing about how they'd be old and gray in this house long after the kids were gone. Now, that dream was being threatened by a stranger on the phone. His adult son called, offering help. "Dad, just let me help. Please." John, his voice thick with pride and shame, refused. "We're fine. It's a mix-up. We'll handle it." Later that night, John overheard his wife on the phone with their daughter. "Oh, we're fine, honey. Your father's just sorting out a little paperwork mix-up. Nothing to worry about." She was lying too now. A quiet, mutual sacrifice. That evening, she struggled to open a jar of pickles in the kitchen, her knuckles white with the effort from her arthritis. She didn't ask for help, turning her back so he wouldn't see her grimace. He pretended not to notice. They were both strong and both broken at once. He picked up the phone to call his son again, his thumb hovering over the number. He couldn't bring himself to dial. He put the phone down and instead pulled out a worn folder of his old pay stubs, tracing the Social Security deductions with his finger, as if trying to find proof of the promise. To keep the lights on, he did the unthinkable. He walked into the garage and began sorting through a lifetime of memories. He picked up the heavy toolbox his father had given him. He could almost hear his father's voice, a memory from decades ago. "Take care of your tools, son, and they'll take care of you." Then silence. But he stopped at his wife's wedding china, wrapped carefully in a chest. He couldn't. It was the one thing her mother left her. He sold the tools for a fraction of their worth, the feel of the cold steel in his hands a final goodbye to the man he used to be. That night, his wife found him crying in the garage. Not loud, just broken. She put a hand on his shoulder. "You've been my rock for 50 years, she said. "Let me be yours for once." The next day, he drove to the local Social Security office. The line snaked out the door, a sea of tired, anxious faces. The air was thick with desperation. He saw the slow tap of a cane on the linoleum floor, heard the tired sighs, saw people clutching forms like losing lottery tickets. A woman a few seats down was praying quietly, her lips moving without a sound. It felt less like an office and more like a funeral line. He overheard a woman telling the man in front of her, "They said I owe them money. After all this time, they say, I owe them." The man just nodded grimly. "Happened to my brother-in-law, too." John was handed a form and told to wait. He knew it was hopeless. He sat at his kitchen table that night and, with a shaking hand, began to write a letter. He read it aloud to the empty room. "To whom it may concern. For 50 years, I held up my end of the bargain. I'm not asking for charity, just what I paid into, what I was promised." John's case wasn't rare, but what the data says next might be even more disturbing. His story isn't some freak accident. It's the human face of a national crisis that's been building for decades. When Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act into law, he called it a cornerstone in a structure which is being built, but is by no means complete. Today, that cornerstone is showing deep cracks. John's missing check is a symptom of a much larger disease. To get why, you have to look past the individual check and see the giant machine behind it. Social Security is not a personal savings account. The money you pay in today is immediately paid out to today's retirees. For a long time, this worked. Back in 1960, there were more than 5 workers paying into the system for every one person taking benefits. But that math is completely upside down. Today, that ratio has dropped to less than 3 to 1. This isn't a theory. It's from the Social Security trustees themselves. Their latest report is a flashing red light. The trustees project that the main trust fund for retirement benefits will be unable to pay full benefits as early as 2033. If Congress does nothing, all beneficiaries would face an immediate, automatic benefit cut projected to be between 21% and 23%. For the average retiree, that's a loss of over $400 every single month. For someone like John, a 23% cut is a catastrophe. It's the difference between paying the mortgage and foreclosure. This systemic problem is made worse by the exact administrative issues that trapped John. The SSA is underfunded and understaffed, leading to huge backlogs. Mistakes happen. A misplaced file can trigger a sudden benefit suspension, or even a clawback, like what happened to Mary, a retired teacher from Ohio. In her own words, "They sent me a letter demanding I repay $22,000 in what they claimed were overpayments. I nearly fainted. My husband fought in Korea. I was a teacher for 35 years. This is how it ends." But her story isn't even the most shocking one we found. Another man, a veteran from Florida, died while waiting for his appeal of a suspended benefit to be processed. His family received his back pay nearly a year after his funeral. John's story shows us two critical truths. First, the systemic risk is real. Second, the individual risk is also real. Relying only on a single, government-controlled source of income is a gamble on politics and bureaucracy. No one's coming to save us. But we can still save ourselves. If you felt that cold fear in your chest while hearing John's story, you already know it's time to act. It's easy to hear a story like John's, see these numbers, and feel hopeless. But that is the most dangerous feeling to have. Because while you can't fix Social Security by yourself, you have absolute power over your own financial preparations. Before we dive into the specific steps you can take a moment to subscribe and click the notification bell. The financial world is always changing, and our goal here is to give you the strategies you need not just to survive, but to thrive. The shift from fear to action starts with one powerful realization. Social Security was never meant to be your only source of retirement income. There's one income stream that could have saved John, and it's one most people overlook completely. The solution is to rebuild the other two legs of the retirement stool, pensions and personal savings. This isn't about abandoning Social Security. It's about supplementing it so thoroughly that any future cuts become a manageable problem, not a life-shattering crisis. The key strategy is to diversify your income streams. 1. Tax-advantaged retirement accounts. These are the bedrock of any solid plan. The 401k, the traditional IRA, and the powerful ROTH IRA, where money grows and is withdrawn completely tax-free. 2. Creating your own pension with annuities. With pensions nearly extinct, annuities are a way to create your own private pension, a guaranteed stream of income for life. 3. Choosing investments that pay you. Your retirement portfolio should also be about generating income. Dividend-paying stocks, bonds, and even real estate through REITs can create reliable cash flow. 4. The Health Savings Account, or HSA. Often overlooked, the HSA is an incredible retirement tool with a unique triple tax advantage. In retirement, when medical costs are high, having a dedicated tax-free fund is a game changer. If John had just one of these income streams, that month might have looked very different. We began with John, a man who did everything right, who kept his end of a 50-year bargain, only to have the rug pulled out from under him. Eventually, the check came. 63 days later. But something in him, some fundamental trust in the world, never returned. They didn't have much, but they always had each other, and that was enough to try again. We journeyed from his personal nightmare to the stark math of the Social Security crisis, a system strained by demographics and paralyzed by politics, heading toward a projected benefit cut for everyone if things don't change. But the final destination of this journey isn't fear. It's empowerment. John's story is a wake-up call. For too long, we've treated Social Security not as the safety net it was designed to be, but as a guaranteed pillar of retirement. That pillar is cracking. The solution is to take personal responsibility for our own financial destinies. It's to embrace the strategies we've discussed, to relentlessly fund 401ks and Roth IRAs, to build diversified income streams, and to see Social Security for what it must be, a welcome supplement, not a solitary lifeline. The ticking clock on Social Security is real. The risk of bureaucratic failure is real. But the greatest risk of all is doing nothing. The most dangerous thing you can do is to finish this video and continue to count on a promise that the government itself warns it may not be able to fully keep. At the end of the story, John's wife finds him in the garage, not crying, but cleaning the old fishing rod his father gave him. It's no longer just a symbol of a promised past, but a tool for a future he's taking back into his own hands. He's going to go fishing again. Your financial security is too important to outsource. Your dignity in retirement is too precious to leave to chance. Take the fear John's story may have stirred in you and channel it. Start today. Build your own damn safety net, because the only promise you can truly count on is the one you make to yourself. Someone out there needs to hear this story. Share it with them. Let them know they're not crazy. The system is broken, but we're not helpless. Did this story remind you of someone in your life? A parent, a friend, maybe even yourself? If you've been through something like John, share your story in the comments. You are not alone, and your voice matters. What promise did you grow up believing would be there? And what did you do when it wasn't? Watch this next for another gripping tale of retirement gone wrong, plus the lesson you can't afford to miss.